Hey everyone, this is the Shut Up and Talk Up Wellness Lifestyle Brand Representative, where we focus on mental health, emotional health, and physical health. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Miss Fiscally Responsible, Brittany. How you doing today?
Yes. I'm really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we are excited to have you here. And before we get into the conversation, I just want to let everyone know that we are having a health talk discussion with healthcare contributors, wellness contributors, and we thought what actually contributes to health, and finance is such a big thing. It affects everything, how we manage it, how we handle it. And we have a guru here to assist us and give us insight on what to do with that. But before getting into the topic, Brittany, can you give the audience a little bit more information about yourself, your brand, and your goals?
Absolutely. So again, thank you for having me. My name is Brittany Charles, also known as Mrs. Fiscally Responsible. I am a financial coach and owner of Fiscally Responsible Financial Coaching and Solutions, where I focus on financial wellness in terms of primarily working with women to be able to lead them in terms of thriving financially, with the goal to build wealth. So I'm based out of New Jersey. However, I work with women all throughout the country, virtual basis. I also to just being able to inspire and aware financial and raise awareness to financial literacy. I started a merchandise clothing line to be able to just plug in more regarding just an advocate of financial literacy.
Okay,
So
is that what you're wearing?
yeah, so this is one of the shirts. Thank you. Goal is to build wealth, especially amongst the Black community in terms of really being able to work through the basics of finances to be able to get to that stage in itself.
Well, that's awesome, and we're glad to have you here today. One of the topics that we wanted to dive into was um, finance and psychology. I know that's a little deep, but do you think that there's a link to how people process finance, like mentally, and how it affects how they operate throughout their life with it?
Absolutely. I think that's a very important topic, and that's a very important piece because in order to achieve financial success, we must understand the first step is really our money mindset in terms of our financial mindset, in terms of that psychology piece of money. Understanding that it starts with our mindsets for sure, because our mindsets contributes to our behaviors, right? Where when it comes down to our financial life and our ultimate goal to reach financial success, we must understand the statistic regarding financial success is really about 20% financial literacy and financial knowledge. 80% our money behaviors and our behaviors with money and our relationship to money in itself. So that in itself was very insightful for me when it came down to me starting my own fiscally responsible journey and starting my journey to coach others, really understanding how significant, our this psychology of money and our behaviors with money
Right,
is, like when it comes down to the ultimate goal here. So
right.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, even going back to the psychology of money, how soon do you think parents should teach their children practice behaviors of saving, and what is the age of doing that?
So I'm all about as early as possible. The earlier the better. It's hard to really like pinpoint an age. Like me being a mom and having a 3-year-old,
Congratulations.
it really started. Oh, thank you so much. And I really I'm really big on ensuring that I sort of instill that into her, as early as possible. It really started prior to me even before she was born, in terms of really working through my own fiscally responsible journey and ensuring that I, work towards and planning, my financial life in
Right.
itself prior
Right.
to her being born. And when she was born, it was all about exposing her to as much as possible. So
Right.
like I had her attend workshops with me, believe
Oh,
it or not, while she
yes.
was an infant, right? And I know it may sound a little bit like, okay, she's an infant. What does she know about it? But
No,
I think that was setting the foundation of really exposing her, buying
yes.
her children's financial literacy books,
Yeah.
right? Because I think that's an integral part of her development as early as possible. Setting her up with a piggy bank,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's those little things that really is important
Yeah.
as early as possible. So I'm a firm believer, like it could look so differently. It doesn't necessarily have to be really like having the conversation per se. It could
Right.
really look like exposing your little ones early as possible, starting
Right.
with those children books, being able to just, expose her to like the basics of money when it comes
Yeah.
down to change and things like that. You know what I mean? The earlier the better, because
Yeah.
as someone that wasn't exposed as much as I would like, where I am all about setting a different path for my little one,
Hmm.
um that's very important in
Yeah.
terms of
I,
what does it look like as early as possible.
I think you brought up a valid point. So my background is I have Jamaican parents, and they came to America to,
Okay.
give a better life. And my mom, you know, she didn't have much education when she came here.
Mhm.
She didn't even finish high school before she came here. And throughout the years, she pushed herself, and I've always seen her save. She
Yeah.
would give us those little plastic piggy banks you get from Main Street, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes,
The-
absolutely.
and and I would, she would tell us. I remember she bought us that. Tell us to put our our money inside there. And this is from as early as 5. I remember my mom doing that. And even with her coming to America, and making a lot of sacrifices, she was able to purchase 2 homes, and then also give one, like, transfer one of those homes to one of my siblings, and then try to
Oh,
pass
look.
on that in that way. Um, she, my mom, she is an inspiration for me as far as saving, and I'm also very frugal. And
Yeah.
so I grew up with 5 sisters and 1 brother, and I used to always have to share things. I didn't have my own room. I had to start working my freshman year in high school because I knew that I knew my parents, my mom and my dad. I grew up with my mom and my dad. I knew they could not afford certain things, and
Right.
so even with me working my high school job, I had to realize that, okay, I want to get these Jordans. I want,
Okay, we've been there.
yeah. But I also
Yeah.
know that, I had to do things like pay for my school pictures, and but putting money aside and just having that idea to put it aside. And what I think is so important about your brand name is that you use the word responsible.
Mhm.
It intimidates some people as well. It
Yeah.
can intimidate you if you lack accountability or responsibility. But I think that it also challenged us
Uh-huh.
to want to be fiscally
Yeah.
responsible.
Yeah.
That's what I think about, like, the title when I see the title of your name. And so I think it's a valid point you brought up as far as implementing, just having your kids around.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's definitely
Early as possible. And going back to what you're saying too, to piggyback even more, it's about just, having that conversation transparently, in terms of really talking up in front of our kids about the budget, right? And sometimes the
Right.
budget, the B word, like I would
Right.
call it, can be intimidating as well. But making sure our children are aware of, like, it's important for them to understand, that terminology as early as possible, and really having
Right.
those conversations and talking to them so they can grow up, because it's all about them growing up to be
Yes.
fiscally responsible, right?
Yes.
Similar to how you
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
that
I mean,
building you to be able to bring it into your adulthood. And that's really the goal here.
yeah. And I think even with being responsible, um, I I had temptations to shop or, I'm someone I am an emotional eater.
Yes.
And I would spend so much money on food. And
Yep.
it was always a thought to me like, well, I have the money so I can buy it. But then it came to me like, wait a minute, just because I have the money, that don't mean I need to spend it. That's when some people say, oh, well, you make, let's say if you make $500,000 a year. People think that
Yes.
because you make that amount of money, you
Okay.
got it. But if you're not fiscally responsible, what
Right.
happens?
You could just spend it all. Right. And that's a whole nother aspect to it too, as well as you don't have to spend everything you make, right? And that goes even deeper in terms of, what's the ultimate goal here, in terms of, do you just want to like be at the end of the year and look at your W-2 and say like, what do I have left? What do I have remaining of it? Right? How does that feel inside, right? When we talk
Right.
about the psychology itself, right? Or do you want to say, okay, I managed to save 25% of that. I managed to save 50% of that, right? So it's full circle, but it's those little contributors that matter. Like you're talking about that emotional spending when it comes down to eating, right? And that you're
Yeah.
not alone, because I think it's a real thing. Like we go through these cycles of like stress, right? Just being human beings.
Yes.
Dealing with everyday life, and especially now, right? Dealing with
Yeah.
the pandemic, that's a whole nother
Everything.
thing, right? Where we go through these cycles, and the fact that you can assess that, you can acknowledge that is, a pain point, right? What I like to refer it to, but you recognize that. So it's a matter of acknowledging it and being able to address it. But it's a real thing, because you're not alone when it comes down to being an emotional
Yeah. Another
spender.
thing. Yeah.
You've been there,
Another.
because I have too. So
Yeah.
I'm all about being transparent with
uh
journey too.
Yeah. No, I agree. Another thing that I noticed that I have done in the past was I like to see my refrigerator like packed, but I
Yes.
wasn't always eating the food.
Ooh,
And
see?
I'm going back to that because that's where my challenges were. Like, okay, I went food shopping. Ooh, my food
Uh-huh.
is good.
Right.
And then I go out and eat. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, you're
Yeah.
hustling backwards. Like that's what I was doing. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad you point that out. Another topic I wanted to touch base was, can you share some financial boundaries? Like how to set
Ooh,
financial boundaries with yourself, with your loved ones, with
yeah.
friends. I one of the things I even with my friends, even very like younger, I would say, I can't shop with y'all because if I go shopping with y'all, I'm gonna end up buying so much things, or I like to I know what I want, so I'm not really an indecisive person, and sometimes I would be peer pressure. They didn't pressure me.
Yeah, but
I
it's
would buy
those
things because
things.
we're all shopping, and then I would go back home like, did I really need this? So, what are your thoughts on
Uh-huh.
boundaries, financial
Ooh,
boundaries?
that is extremely important, and it's not always easy. So I think it's so important to recognize it's not easy, right? To be able to set those boundaries. But I think it goes down to that core and that foundation that you set in the very beginning. I have a 4-week financial goal digger group coaching program that kind of
Nice.
ties directly into just like the foundation, right? Setting the foundation up, which goes hand in hand with identifying your money mindset as well. But it comes down to really being firm on your why, right? like really being able to understand what is going to bring you peace and joy, right? And what is going to really be able to keep you as focused as possible in terms of sticking to your budget, right? And I know I always label the budget in terms of that B word, but it's an important piece to really be able to set the foundation up for your financial success, especially if you're someone that has specific goals, right? And have financial goals to reach and everything like that. I think setting in boundaries is very important but it's hard too. But really being able to identify, what is something that you're okay with saying yes to, and what are things that you're okay with saying no to. And it's a work in progress. So you totally have to give yourself grace. But I think once you're able to really clarify your why and set the big picture up, it would allow you to really be able to say no a lot easier, right? And being able to set those boundaries a lot easier in itself. So one of my biggest tips is totally to, establish a budget. So you're able to go right back to that as your foundation when it comes down to you being asked to go out somewhere. Is it in my budget this week? It's not, right?
Right. That's fine. Yeah, so I think that is so important as well. And what are your thoughts on building that courage to have these conversations with the people around you? Because oftentimes, if we're around people that are not fiscally responsible, or maybe they do have, maybe their budget is bigger than your budget.
Yeah.
What is, how do you, what are some tips that you can share with someone that has trouble with expressing to, let's say, a man and his fiance, or two girlfriends, or a group of friends? What if, how do you go about and make that conversation and say, hey, you guys, I know this is what y'all want to do, but I don't want to go to the club and pop bottles. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but
it's such a real thing, I must say. It really takes that confidence, and it doesn't instantly happen, especially at the start of your journey, right? It doesn't instantly happen. You have to work towards building that up, right?
Right.
But thinking about the tactful ways in terms of really being transparent, I think transparency goes a long way to really express to your loved ones. And this will ultimately be a test too. To identify like who respects, your boundaries, right? But really being transparent to really be able to share, like, listen, I'm working on this journey. I'm trying to keep it real. I'm trying to pay off my credit card debt, right? Really being that transparent to say, right now, I'm not looking to do anything extracurricular. My budget. I remember vividly having to, at the start, I started my own fiscally responsible journey in 2018, right? And when I say it was an intense journey, but it was the best thing I could have ever done for my life in hindsight, right? But I remember having my friends ask me, oh, you want to go on a vacation? And I had to flat out respond and say, oh, I got to look at my budget. Just as simple as that, that's really all it takes. And then, either they're going to respond and say, I respect that, or they probably going to talk about you and say, what? But believe it or not, I have those same friends that's asking me questions about, how did you become credit card debt free? Yeah. Can you help me with so it becomes full circle. So if anything I can reference, just be honest, just keep it real, just be transparent, because I can assure you that you're gonna be an inspiration to someone in your circle. And just understanding that piece, but the transparency is totally key sometimes, just being honest, but it does require that certain layer of confidence and a certain level of confidence to really be able to be transparent. But I think there's so much opportunity where money has always been this taboo, right? Where we don't want to speak about our income, to each his own and things like that, right? But believe it or not, actually being forthcoming with with the money topic in itself is very helpful in so many ways. Like in terms of it could address so many issues when it comes down to, I don't want to get too deep into this, but when it comes down to that conversation about income, you can recognize that you're being underpaid sometimes. It's so many benefits to actually talking about these things. And I have been in this space for quite some time where I coach a lot of clients. I coach in a group coaching program that sort of supports that level of community to be able to talk freely about these things. And I'm all about continuing to advocate in that way.
Right. And so before we wrap up, I just have like two more questions. What are your thoughts on teaching financial literacy in like schools or,
Ooh.
you know, and what age? I know we talked about, I know you said it doesn't matter what age to implement that, but as far as in schools, public schools, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's extremely important. And I can speak from the place of not having it taught, right? Where I wish, because it's all about like timing with financial literacy. Had I known about investing and everything back in high school, listen, like I could have been a millionaire by now, right? So we think about that part, right? Where we weren't exposed to it. So I'm an advocate of it being taught as early as possible, no later than high school, you know what I mean? But I feel like there's opportunity to start teaching it in preschool, right? Because it doesn't have to be as complex. It's really a matter of getting it out there in a way where the exposure occurs, right? Like we are, it's an essential part of our lives. Like our finances impact every aspect of our life, right?
Yeah.
Every aspect of our life.
It
So
does.
the earlier, the better. And that's why, I'm all about teaching my daughter as early as possible, making sure that she's exposed as early as possible, because I'm a firm believer, the earlier, the better. And I think it's critical. And I'm happy that a lot of states are now requiring it. It's becoming law. Yeah, New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
It's a part of the law. Florida.
Oh, I'm learning. Ladies and gentlemen, I am learning.
Yes, it's becoming a part of the curriculum because it has been identified. Clearly, I'm not the only one that thinks this way. We're not the only one that thinks this way, right? It has become recognized that it's essential to learn as early as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so as far as how you assist individuals, do you help with not repairing credit, or do you tap into credit, or?
I do. So I focus on the foundations of your financial life in terms of starting with the budgeting, starting with being able to budget effectively, successfully, being able to reach your financial goals and set smart financial goals, being able to save money, to pay off debt for sure, and being able to actively improve your credit, because those are key components of your financial life. So I focus and I work with women to be able to work through those sort of goals in itself.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's definitely awesome. I mean, do you have any other? Well, first of all, you shared a lot of tips today.
Oh, great.
we had, we had some great you gave some great pointers. Is there anything else you can share with the audience? Where to find you, your products, your brand?
Yeah, so I'm active on social, Instagram at Mrs. Responsible. I'm active on Facebook as well. My website is fiscally-responsible.com, where I provide the opportunity to connect one-on-one in terms of really being able to reach out for coaching, to set up coaching one-on-one. I have a boot camp group coaching program that I offer on a quarterly basis or so, depending on the need and as I get the demand, of course. But the best places to reach out to me is via Instagram at mrs.fiscallyresponsible or my website. And then I also offer, and I started my online store to provide merchandise in terms of that's focused on raising awareness to financial literacy, wealthy vibes only. This is one of the sweatshirt collections. So I'm really excited about that because that's a part of the branding, and to be able to just continue to raise the awareness and inspire building wealth.
Yes, yes. Well, Brittany, I want to thank you so much for participating, educating our audience, and just really, tackling a very important, necessary conversation when it comes to finance and breaking the ice, addressing the elephant in the room. You talked about being transparent. You shared insight on when should we share information with children, and use as early as you can. You can slowly implement it. We did talk about not so much the peer pressure, but boundaries, financial boundaries. We touched base on the psychology, financial psychology, and how it's a behavior aspect that ties in. It's a domino effect. And I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Anika.
Yes, no problem. It's an honor. And thank you.